Hello, my name is Paul Callan and this is MotorZen News.
You could try to play it, but you're never gonna beat me.
We've been doing the YouTube stuff now for almost a month and I'm enjoying it a lot because it's bringing together all these stories that are existing every week within our automotive industry. This week we are going to feature topics on almost all forms of propulsion. We're going to have something about electric, we're going to have something about ICE engines, we're going to have something about hybrid, we're going to have something about hydrogen, and we're also going to have something about methane. So a wide range of stuff that we're going to talk about in this week's show. First one up is the chip shortage. Again, this has been something that I was struggling to understand because it appears that it's not resolved. We're all aware of the fact that dealers aren't able to get cars. I just heard of a truck deal that was done in the north during the week for 10 Volvos, and the Volvos can't be delivered because they're sitting in the factory yard in Sweden waiting for chips also. And it's just puzzling because some of the brightest and best people work in the automotive industry. They've always worked on just in time concepts of delivery. Everything's been so super efficient. But I've done a bit of research on this during the week, and what I discovered was that when COVID started, the manufacturers stopped ordering. They cut their orders for chips. And then what happened was that the factories who were manufacturing the chips, they reallocated that factory capacity to chips for iPhones, PlayStations, and all that type of technology. Incidentally, those chips make more money for the chip manufacturers because the automotive manufacturers use older chips. The reasoning behind the car manufacturers using older chips, they don't need that capacity in a chip that you need for an iPhone 13, for example. And they also do need to make sure that the chip is very reliable and it's going to last for decades in all temperatures and in all humidity. So this is the reason why they use a kind of outdated chip. And that's the reason why the chip manufacturers haven't just switched on supply back to the car manufacturers. You can then say, well, why does somebody not go, like for example, what we have going on here in Ireland, the Intel factories have been built at the moment. The figure they say to build a factory in the United States is something around 10 billion. So in reality, what we have going on here is the chip manufacturer saying there's nothing we can do about it. Sorry about that. You cancel your order, you're in the queue to be rescheduled, but that's not going to happen for another 6 or 10 months because that's what it looks like. It's going to take the most of this year for the chip shortage to sort itself out. Very quickly now, again, to remind you that Auto Inform is going on again on the 2nd and 3rd of April. Frank Massey is speaking, has a workshop at Auto Inform, and the topic that Frank's going to talk about is, well, common rail diesel. But he's actually expanding that out a little bit because he's going to be dealing with pressure and then dealing with a non-intrusive analysis, what he's going to talk about, which is certainly more very relevant today, because if you look at the pressure the consumer is under now in terms of paying bills, you're always very concerned about keeping the bill down. Well, what Frank's going to talk about is non-intrusive analysis. So he's going to try and work through not spending hours stripping a vehicle down, try and use your scope and your live data to pick up information that's going to allow you to diagnose without having to spend time stripping and rebuilding. And also he's going to start to cross-reference that information now to GDI, for example, because the information or the knowledge that you have of common rail crosses over to high pressure petrols as well. So there's going to be a crossover in what he's speaking about at the Auto Inform. So that's the 2nd and the 3rd of April in the RDS. Another story and it joins up to stuff we spoke about for the last couple of weeks, but it's the right to repair, the motor vehicle right to repair legislation, which in Europe was due to be renewed in May 2023, but they've extended it to May 2028. But this story refers to the States, and on the 2nd of February, the right to equitable and professional auto industry repair. That's a grouping that came together. Short for that is repair. Right to equitable and professional auto industry repair. That they brought an act to Congress, and that act is going through Congress now at the moment, and that's going to ensure consumer choice, and it's designed for free and fair market in terms of the repair of the car, access to in-vehicle data, access to cyber security, access to tech info tools, and then the ability to use independent tools. So that is going through Congress in the States at the moment. And it's interesting to watch because that's what our next block exemption ruling here will be based on that newer type stuff that has to be tackled and addressed. So it's interesting to watch how they go with that in the States. But another aside to that is that, as far as I can work out, the UK's block exemption ruling ends on that date on May 2023. So what we're getting back from the UK at the moment is that we're getting feedback that says evidence that shows manufacturers and dealer networks to be misinterpreting the current legislation. We're getting feedback that says that customers are going in, the vehicle's in warranty, they're discovering that the vehicle has been worked on by an independent workshop, and they're refusing to work on the vehicle. So it looks like the goalposts are changing a little bit in the UK, and the UK have to write up their own legislation now by the end of May 2023. So there's a lot of stuff happening in that we in Europe have a new block exemption ruling coming now in 28. America is driving through what we should be doing in 2028, and the UK are going to be out in the cold as far as these regulations are concerned by May 2023. DS, to follow the top end performance prestige brand of Citroën, of Stellantis, has got a prototype vehicle that they're just starting to speak about at the moment. They're taking their technology from Formula E, that's the electric racing series that's been running for a number of years now, and Citroën / DS have been heavily involved in that from the start. This prototype, they call it the E-Tense. It's a carbon monocoque, and it's using two motors that's developed from Formula E, producing a total of 815 brake horsepower, and they're giving a figure of 8,000 Newton meters of torque. So we looked at this and we thought the figure must be wrong, but we've done some research and they are putting this out as a figure for the performance of the car. So mind-bending performance out of this. Now it's still a prototype, but the technology exists because the technology has been used in Formula E, and I always like these stories because I like to see where the technology, because some people look at racing and rallying as frivolous and unimportant, but it does leak down. The technology that's used in racing and rallying does eventually come out on the cars that we use every day, and this is an example of that technology starting to be presented. Yes, indeed, in a prototype, but something that will eventually come down the line. Another interesting fact on this is it has a mechanical braking system, but it's only there as a backup. All your normal day-to-day braking is done on the regen system. The mechanical braking only there as a backup. So I said at the start we were going to mention a lot of fuels and a lot of different fuels and a lot of different forms of propulsion. Hydrogen. Again, we spoke about hydrogen a couple of weeks ago with some new storage and transport technology. Refueling is available in 33 countries on hydrogen now. In 2021 there was 142 new locations, 37 in Europe, 89 in Asia, 13 in the USA. There's a total of 685 refueling points around the world, and there's 252 new refueling points coming in the next couple of months. Hungary, Spain, New Zealand, are all going to be getting refueling points. They've got none at the moment. Germany has 101, France has 42, UK has 19, Switzerland has 12, and Netherlands has 11. In Asia, which is the country that is promoting the technology, because the technology has been mainly promoted by Hyundai and Kia and Toyota. In Asia, there's 363 refueling points. 159 of those are in Japan. And that kind of makes sense that Toyota always seem to be resisting electric, and they seem to be heavily pushing hydrogen. Now, we know that they've gone down the road of electric, but when you look at the number of service stations or refueling points, Japan is 159. It's the highest number of any country in the world. Korea is 95. There's 105 in China, but China is only using them for buses and trucks. That's the only vehicles that are fueled by those in China. And I said at the start we were going to talk about all these fuels. We're now going to talk about a tractor that's been launched in America in the summertime from New Holland, and it's powered by cow farts. Yep. T6 Methane. New Holland are launching a methane powered tractor. So therefore a farmer can produce methane, grow crops to produce methane, or he can use his agri-waste, his manure, and produce biomethane, and the byproduct then of that biodigestion can be used as a natural fertilizer. So in theory you have a complete closed loop system, a complete carbon free system here in this concept. So it's going to be interesting to watch that, to see if finally that technology leaks down and starts to be used right the way through, because in theory the tractor ends up being zero pollutions because it's a complete closed loop system. We spoke 2 or 3 weeks ago about rallying and the fact that there were new rally cars for 2022. The hybrid rally cars were what they were using this year, Rally 1 as they call it. Monte Carlo took place, and there's just some technical feedback from Monte Carlo. First thing was, this was the first time they went with the tubular frame chassis, which produced more safety features than the conventional production-based WRC car, which effectively was a car that came off the assembly line. These cars are no longer cars that come off the assembly line. They're built in the factory in this tubular frame format. And if there were any concerns about the safety, they were thoroughly tested when Adrien Fremeau, the French driver in the M Sport Fiesta, dropped it off the edge of a cliff. You'll see from the footage on his car that he fairly tested out whether or not the tubular system was safe or not. There was some concerns on the driver's part about the seating position, but also the reason that the organisers put the seating position where it was to give more space around the driver and the co-driver, and again that was proven to be a good move. As a result, you can see in that accident. Little thing that the drivers were tripping up on was the regulation says you have to use the vehicle in electric in the road sections. Some drivers were penalised because they weren't using the car in electric in the road sections, they were using the engine. Concerns, all the teams had concerns over the cooling system, the ability to cool the hybrid battery. That proved to be successful. They don't seem to have any issues on the cooling. Some of the drivers are given some feedback about the fact that they can only use, there are only 6 maps homologated, 3 maps for engine and 3 maps for the regen. Some drivers are saying that the maps that they have are just not right, so they're going to have to live with them, I think, for the rest of the season as far as we can work out. Suspension changes were that max suspension travel was 270mm. Previously it was over 300mm, it was almost in as much as they could. Toyota and Ford previously would have had the strut off the centre line of the axle in order to get the travel. That's the way they installed the strut. Hyundai ironically had the strut upright, so in line with the axle. In the new evolution, both Ford and Toyota have gone for an upright strut in line with the axle. Because they can achieve the 270mm without having to put the strut at an angle. But ironically, Hyundai, who seem to have the most issues on Monte Carlo, have put the strut at an angle off the centre line. and feedback from Hyundai was that the handling was a bit of an issue in the car. So a very strange move on Hyundai's part. Next round of the World Championship, 24-27 of February, is Sweden on the snow. Last weekend in Ireland we had the Cara Boyles Galway International Rally, was won by Josh Moffat in a Hyundai i20 R5. Marion Evans was second in a Golf R5 and third was Colm Devine in a Fiesta R5. Fabulous mix of cars and competitors on this year's Irish Tarmac Championship, and it's just only proven by the fact that 3 different cars finished in the top 5 on the rally. Next day out for those guys is West Cork on the 19th and the 20th of March. That's this week's news. Thanks for watching. Please, if you could, like, comment and subscribe. Thanks very much.